Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here. My guest today is Catherine Clark. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you are the owner of Brooklyn General Store, and I haven't been to your store yet. It's on my bucket list of places to visit, but I've seen so many videos about your stores from the yarn crawl, from like different bloggers talking about it. How did idea of opening the store came to you?
Well, it kind of grew organically from the very beginning. I wasn't one of those people that was like, oh, I always have wanted to own a yarn store. It didn't happen that way for me. I'm a midwife by profession, and I was working full time as a midwife, and I had just delivered my third child. And while I was pregnant with Oliver, I had this really good friend, and we both live in the neighborhood, and we both were bakers. And we kept ordering stuff online because there was no like craft store in our neighborhood. And we both were really into Little House on the Prairie to watching it with our kids. And so we loved the idea of the Olsen's General Store and how it was sort of like a hub of the community, and you could go and you like plan your trip to the general store, and then you end up spending all day there talking with people and like planning your projects and like getting all the fabric for the dresses you're going to make for the season, and getting some gifts for Christmas. And so we were sitting in the park one day with our kids, and we were like, why don't we open something like that? So that's how it started. And it started out in my basement, really, really small. And I just called up like the Rowan fabric rep, and he came and he met me in my living room. No, he actually met me in my parents' living room up in Westchester. And I remember, he came and he showed me all the fabric, and I was like, yes, yes, yes. And then the yarn side of the Rowan rep, Antonia Shanklin, she came to visit me. We laugh about it now, but she came to visit me. I was 2 weeks postpartum. I had my breasts were leaking, had my baby in my arms. And I was just looking through her yarn, and I just was like, okay, I'm going to buy this yarn. And that's how it started. I had yarn in boxes and fabric in my basement. And
You consider yourself like from I know that you learned to knit like before you learned to walk, basically, like it was very early in your childhood.
yes.
You consider yourself mostly a knitter or mostly a seamstress? What's your main path?
I probably, I learned to knit and sew around the same age, around 5 years old. And I've always sewn and I've always knit, but more recently I've gotten into designing. So I would say I spend more of my time knitting now. I don't have as much time to sew, although I think about sewing a lot. I don't actually do it. But I have some plans to like step up that side of myself in the next year or so. Yeah. So I have like ideas that I've stored away in closets, and I'm like slowly like pulling them out and getting back into doing some of the things that I wanted to. It's very vague. I'm sorry.
Does that surprise you that like you sort of going into the opening business without the really clear vision and business plan?
I
And
know.
now it's all evolving. Like, I mean, is that just part of your personality and everything, or it's just the side of like crafting?
Well, it's sort of like you kind of have to believe that you can do things, right? So I just kind of feel like when you set your mind to something, you just figure it out. And I don't do a lot of figuring out beforehand. I also, started a private practice in midwifery, and I had created a business already, so it wasn't like I was like just totally green going into starting this other business. So and this was all pre social media, right? So there wasn't like, I didn't do any advertising. It was really just people walking by, I remember an early funny story. It was, I don't even think I had a sign up on the front of my basement yet. And maybe I had like a paper sign, like Brooklyn General Store. And I was upstairs, I think, giving my kids some food or something. And I came back down and there was a note on the desk saying like, I want to buy these 3 things. And somebody had come in, shopped on their own and left me a note. And I was like, oh, and it turned out that customer was Heather Love, who ended up working for me for like 10 years.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So anyway, a lot of my employees happened that way. Like they just came in and then they just stayed.
Let's talk about your employees, because like from what I'm hearing, right, like to run a midwifery business and to run a store, like you have to rely on other people for help. You can't do everything by yourself. So how was that team that works in Brooklyn General evolving over the years?
Initially, it was really just me by myself, and my friend Katie. And since it was in my house, I took most of the hours, because it was easy for me and nobody was coming in anyway. But as people started to find out about us, we had to have regular hours. I mean, in the beginning, we sort of like built our hours around what we could do, and then we realized that we did need some employees to cover that. I would say when it was in my house for about 6 years, and when it was in my house, it was mostly me and Katie, and then maybe one other person or 2 people part-time who were really just knitters who were coming to our morning breakfasts, and they were just helping. And then what happened is the store across the street came up for rent, and it was a big general store. It had already been a general store, and it's right across the street. And Katie and I looked at each other and we were like, oh God, are we going to do this like for real? Like, are we really going to have a shop, or is it just going to be in your basement forever? And so we decided that, yes, we were going to make a go of it. And it was really sweet. All the people that knew about my little basement store, like came over on the day of moving day, and then we put all the yarn in these like black garbage bags. We like marched it across the street, and we took up like, an eighth or less of that space. And then, oh my God, I mean, you haven't been there, but if you see it now, I'm like, where am I going to put stuff? Like there's nothing, every single corner of that store is packed.
Well, when I talk to yarn store owners or like craft store owners, right, there is this thing like, oh, I'm just gonna put my favorite yarn and I'm gonna sit in this corner and I'm gonna knit and people gonna come and we're gonna chat. And then the reality hits that your favorite yarn is not necessarily what sells the best, and like what you thought is going to be bestseller is not. And you're surprised by what does sell, and you don't have a second to sit down and you have to do like million tasks. How was it for you, like when you opened that big store?
It was a little scary, but and it was, if you look at like, I obviously I keep spreadsheets, and if you look at like the growth over the last 20 years, it's like, there's never been a downturn. So, when we started, the first 10 years, I can see, okay, this is growing. And I kept expecting it to like level off, and it just hasn't done that. So I guess, I mean, I've been either it's working or I've been really lucky, or, or the making industry is continuously growing. I mean, sometimes it has ebbs and, and increases, but overall, it's been really wonderful to see. And especially during COVID, like it just exploded, and it hasn't really turned down after that. I think people just like kind of woke up to wanting to make things again.
Well, you are one of those rare people that never stopped making things. Like you never.
Right. No, I didn't. Yeah, no, I haven't. No.
What's crafting for you? Like, how would you describe it?
Oh, well, for me, it's really like eating. and breathing and laughing and singing. Like, it's just part of like who I am, you know. I don't like, I keep it like it's always around me. And you should see the rest of this room. It's just like insane. But you know, I have little yarn piles and little sewing projects all over my house. And, you know, my family doesn't like it that much. I try to contain it. But yeah, it's just part of me.
What do you bring home from the store? Because like the store,
Oh my God. I bring home all well, my routine is like, if I'm in the store working, I'm always like shopping also, you know, like, oh, those colors, you know, like, and I'll bring home ideas and projects, and they'll sit in a little pile. And then, if enough time goes by where I'm not actually using it, I'll bring it back. So I'm one of those customers of my own shop that returns a lot of things.
well, how do you decide what's going to be stocked in your shop?
Oh, well, it's funny you mentioned about like what I like versus what everyone else likes. And initially when I was buying things, I only bought what I liked. It went pretty well, but at a certain point, you know, people wanted more like superwash. And, you know, I didn't do any of that. I didn't do fingering weight yarn even. I just did like worsted and sport. And I can't remember exactly when I like took the plunge into doing a hand dye. Like, I didn't even like hand dyed yarn. I thought it was gross. And then I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was like a Stephen West knit along, or, you know, it was something I was like, okay, I'm going to, you know, I don't even remember who the first hand dyer was that I purchased. Magpie Fibers was one of the first hand dye that I purchased. And she came and did a trunk show with me when she was just starting out. And then it just grew from there.
When it comes to hand dyed yarn, or when it comes to even sample knitting for the store, there is like two ways to approach it, right? You can go with what hot right now on Ravelry, or you can try to promote some less known designers, less known dyers. What's your approach to your store?
I do both those things. And sometimes I just take a risk if I love something. And, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of, you just don't ever know.
Are you ever surprised? Like, did you ever have a moment when you were sure something is gonna be the hottest seller?
Oh yeah, all the time, all the time. That happens all the time. Yeah. But, you know, I feel strongly about like giving people a chance. And, you know, if you're knitting with it and you have a sample of it in the shop, it's easy to promote people.
Right. Well, let's talk about another kind of side of the store. So when I'm thinking of local yarn store, it's not just the place where I can go and touch yarn. It's also a place where I can meet other people, come with my problems, asking how to fix something. There is a social element to it. How did you go about creating that atmosphere?
Well, we always have had a table in the shop where people can sit, and we try to keep it pretty clear so that you feel like you can actually go and sit there and look at a book, or, you know, work on your project while you're waiting for the yarn to be wound. Or you can meet your friends there. We don't, you know, particularly encourage eating in the shop, but, you know, beverages are fine. And we have over the years had different like in-shop social gatherings. We tend to have parties, and we used to have, we don't do this anymore, but I used to open the shop early, like at 9 a.m. to have like a breakfast knit along kind of thing. We did that for quite some time when I could. I can't really hire my employees to come in, start that early, but I can do that myself when I have time. And now we have a maker night that we've been doing or, I mean, over the years we've had maker nights, and then they sort of, sometimes they don't, there's not enough attendance and it's not worth it. But right now we're doing a maker night on Monday nights, and it's really been fun because we're using the our neighbor Cafe Spaghetti has this beautiful backyard, and they allow us to use their backyard. So it's sort of like a speakeasy. You go and you like walk through the store, and then you go in the backyard through the side door, and you can get into this like secret garden. It's really nice. Anytime you can come in and ask questions, and anytime you can, as long as we're not crazy busy on the weekend, you can sit down and we can help you pick up a drop stitch or whatever it is that and if it's something more complicated, we do have a knitting clinic on Thursday mornings.
Right. Who would you say are your customers? How would you describe them?
Oh, our New York City, like it's the whole, everybody from young kids, 10 years old coming in, new sewists, new knitters, to elderly people, all different colors of people. Beautiful. It's a beautiful mix. It's really, that's what I love about New York City, is that, you're not, it's just, you can't help but have all kinds of people.
Well, I watched Nitty Natty's recap of one of the yarn crawls a few years ago, and she was telling a story how she came to your store and she was looking at some yarn, and then some lady walked in and like was telling her, "Are you part of the crawl?" And she said, "Yes, are you?" And the lady said, "No, I'm actually the owner of the store."
Oh, that was me.
Yeah,
I guess that was me.
that was you. Do you feel like you get this kind of interactions all the time with people when they don't see you as the owner of the store? Like, does it?
Oh yeah, because I'm not super out there. I'm pretty quiet, and I'm not promoting myself very much. It's hard for me to promote myself. I'm not like that type of person. So yeah, a lot of the time people don't know who I am. So yeah, that happens all the time.
So that was the sweetest story. It's like it just shows your personality there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your vision for the store, because you used to be full-time midwife, and
Yes.
the store was basically like you were a supervisor of the store more than like full
Mm-hmm.
hands-on. Do you think you're gonna, like, as years pass, do you see yourself retiring, backing up from the store? Do you see yourself going full force into the store?
That's a good question. I as a midwife, I was on call 24 hours, 7 days a week, so I couldn't schedule myself to be in the shop. I mean, there were times when I would have to put a sign up saying like, sorry, sorry, I'm closed. And I hated that. So I always had to have the shop covered. And then when I decided to step back from delivering babies, that opened up a whole world for me. So I could schedule myself. I love working in the store. It's like I love labeling things. Like it's really fun for me to work in the store. So I have been full force in that regard since maybe like 2 years. So for me, it's like a whole new thing, like opening up to me. I thought this time that I can actually focus on the shop. And I have, I could never really do knit night before because I was always like worried I was going to have to cancel it. I could actually never make any plans to do anything, So now it feels like, this opportunity for me to really dive into it.
Well, you mentioned that when you started this store, and it was back in 2002, right?
Yes.
That it was before the social media, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that change over the years?
It created a place for me to like move into a bigger community, so and also like an international community, which was really surprising to me. Like we have people coming from all over the world to Brooklyn General, and they walk in and they're like, I'm like, what? Are you kidding? From Australia, from like Japan, and like everywhere, all over. And that's due to social media for sure. And because of, and also when I first started, there wasn't really, I didn't have any e-commerce, and that grew over time too. So now I have a tremendous website. I don't know if you've looked at it, but there's like, we have so many things in the shop. I'm a big collector of things like squirrels and puppets and things that really spark my creativity, handmade things, and most of them are on the website now. You can still find a lot of little things in the shop that aren't on a website, but so just having Instagram and a more robust website has really grown our little shop into this like international community, which is really nice. We get emails from people all over the world. Just like, it feels really good.
Tell me a little bit about COVID, because that couldn't been very easy.
COVID, we did stay, we were closed, but I was in there, and I was, in the very early days of the pandemic, as New York City was really the hotspot, and people were scared, and I was scared, and it was a great way for me to kind of lift up the community by continuing to be open. And I was so mad. I asked, I did the thing where I was trying to ask for a like the liquor stores could be open and the pharmacies could be open, and I was like, why can't the yard store be open? I mean, come on, this is more important than liquor, Anyway, they said no several times, and so I wasn't open for shopping, but people could shop online, and I would leave their bag with their name on it. We would do this thing where we'd both mask, and I would like stick it outside, and mostly people were making masks with fabric. I sold so much fabric, it was crazy. And I was just by myself, and I was like, my son came and helped me a lot. Cause I would like be pulling the bolts out, and then he would be putting them back so that I could find them the next time, So that's really what I did during COVID. I sold fabric, and I made these mask kits. So I got the elastic, and I did like a tutorial, and so people could figure out how to do it themselves, because it was hard to, it was we were running out of masks at a certain time. So people were making them, and a lot of people learned how to sew making their masks, and now they want to keep sewing. So it was great. Pandemic wasn't great, but it was great that it opened up some creative outlet for people.
Right. When I'm thinking about midwifery, it's like my favorite show is called The Midwife. So I get like a lot
me too.
of pictures from that, like a lot of images from that show. Like, this is how I imagine it. But it's one-on-one. You can't help but create the relationship with the future mother, right? Like, this is your time in the most basically vulnerable time, when you're one-on-one with this woman. Do you feel like there are parallels between midwifery career and your shop? Like, do you have that same kind of relationships with your customers?
Well, literally, yes, because some of my customers are my midwifery clients. So, but I would say, when I stopped doing midwifery full time, or when I stopped delivering babies, I was really sad. I really had to grieve that part of myself. And about 2 weeks went by after I stopped, and I was like, you know what? I'm the same person. Like, I still feel the same. I'm exactly the same person. So whether or not I'm doing midwifery or selling yarn or helping people learn a new craft or anything really, I'm still giving of myself the way I always have through my midwifery career. So that made me feel better. when I was practicing and doing both, there were times when my clients would come over and I would help them with their knitting, like they knew, and they would plan their appointment to be like half an hour before the store opened. So when we would be done, we would walk over together and I'd be like, oh, hi, can I help you? But yeah, there's a lot of crossover, and it's really just about how you approach people and how open you are to getting to know people and giving them support and empowering them, really, which is what midwifery is all about, right? So, when people come to the store and they want you to fix something, I want them to learn how to fix it. Sometimes I'll just fix it, but but mostly I want them to know that they can fix it.
Right. Well, I met you at Woolen Affair at Rhinebeck, or whatever the town was near Rhinebeck, but like at the time.
Right. Yeah.
And I must tell you that it was probably the favorite part of my trip to Rhinebeck, because there were a whole bunch of festivals before the show, during the New York Woolen Ship. Yours was very different because it was very relaxing. Like everything at Rhinebeck, it was about sale of the yarn and like meeting all the famous people, and it was like very intense.
Yeah.
Yours was more like just sit, knit, get to know each other, relax, enjoy the music, enjoy the food, enjoy each other's company. Tell me a little bit about the Woolen Affair. Like, how did you decide on that concept?
I love to have a gathering. I feel like maybe I'm a connector. Like I like to get people together. I also really, really love music. And I think that any gathering that has music is going to feel good. And I also like to sell yarn, but really that wasn't the focus of this. I knew it wasn't going to be a shopping experience. I didn't want it to be a shopping experience. I wanted it to be just a place where you could kind of decompress, because I know how crazy the Sheep and Wool Festival is. Like I can only take so much of the Sheep and Wool Festival. Like I get overloaded, and I just I'm like, I usually leave early. I don't go to the hill. I just like, I have my few people that I really love to see every year, farmers, and I go see the sheep, and then I usually go home. But I know that there's a lot of people that go that feel overwhelmed by the crowds, and it's this very, very overstimulating. So I wanted to create like a space where people could go and have a drink and have some food and just be like, oh my God, and maybe, and I also wanted, like, part of what I love about being a shop owner is that I really love to promote the local wool. I feel really strongly about supporting the farmers in the Hudson Valley, and I wanted to create an event where people, it wasn't about like selling the hand-dyed yarn. It was about more like, let's see what you got at the Sheep and Wool Festival. I wanted people to come in sharing all of their, I don't know if it actually worked, that part of it, but that was the idea. I created that cowl. So you see it. I created this cowl. Here, let me take it off. You can see it better. And it's the main color is farm wool from the festival, not this year, but obviously because I had to make it, right. But a couple years ago that I bought, and the other two yarns, the pink is emiac, and the other corally pink is La Bien-Aimée.
Right.
So I wanted to like create a blend, like almost like a symbol of how all the yarn people can connect, the farmers and the dyers, and yeah.
Right.
That's the idea.
Well,
That was the idea of Woolen Affair, basically. This is the embodiment of a Woolen Affair.
I love that story. Well, when we got to the Woolen Affair, you were the one who were greeting everybody. Like you personally came and said hello, like to everybody who was staying in line to get in. And everybody who participated, like Paula and the ladies from the Neutrino, and like everybody was very sort of schmoozing around, going around, introducing themselves, saying hello.
Yeah.
It was smaller festival than everything else in the area. You limited it to like
We
some
had 200
200
people.
people, right?
Yeah.
Was that by design? Like, did you want it to go smaller?
Well, you know, as a first time thing, and sort of like dipping my toe into this new venue, and I've never worked with them before, and I just, you know, I I wanted to have it be something I could handle and I could get around and meet people that were there, you know, because there was a bunch of us who were reaching out to our circles to have them come. I didn't know everybody that was coming, so I was excited to meet everybody, and it needed to be a small in order for, you know, that especially like it was a little cold, and I did have a heated tent, but I was worried about the rain, and there's not like it's not like an indoor venue. There's like a little, the bar, the tap room, and then the tent. So I just wanted to test it out,
So how did you like what happened? How did you like the Woolen Affair?
I loved it. I had a great time. I even my cousin was there and he danced with me. And so like, that's my goal. Like if I can dance at my own event, it's a win. It's a win.
So do you think it's going to happen again next year? Do you think?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I hope so. I have ideas for how to make it a little bit bigger, not a lot bigger, but I think it might be an all-day thing next year. Maybe it'll be Friday. I don't know. It was a little tricky on Saturday because the farm itself, which I loved. I love that Rose Hill farm. They have an open farm day on Saturday, and I asked them if they could, let me have it on Saturday, and they said no. They're like, no, our people expect the open farm day, and I was so scared when I first got there because it was packed. When I first got there to set up, it was packed. It was like 4:00, and I was like, and we were taking over the venue at 5. And like nobody looked like they were going anywhere. They were like socked in there. They were drinking and like buying pumpkins. And I was like, okay, we'll see what happens here. And they had last call, I think, at like 10 to 5. So, and we were supposed to take over at 5. So I don't know. It was a little bit nerve-wracking. Poor Paola. Paola was like, but it actually, they turned it around so fast. I'm like, I better clean the bathroom. They did a really good job and it worked out, but it was stressful. Like, I don't think I want to do that. Have that quick a turnaround again. Yeah. It need more time to like, I was still, I don't know if you were there when at the very beginning, but I was still like hanging lights in the booth at 6:00 when we were supposed to, it was a little bit quick.
Right. I mean, I had the best time and I brought a couple of friends with me and they were so stressed at Woolen Folk. It was their first time going to New York Ship and Wool, and Saturday night, like when when I said let's drive to Woolen Affair, they were like, "Are you sure we have to go there?" And I said, "Let's just go. Let's just see. We can always leave if we hate it." We stayed there until almost the end. Like it was the most relaxing time, and I had difficult time actually getting them away from going back. Like, are you guys sure you're not tired? Tomorrow is another long day, and they have.
Yeah. Oh, I think was it Needles at the Ready that said that they wished it was a slumber party. Maybe we can figure that out.
It's not a bad idea. It's actually, but it was that sort of feeling of camaraderie and just chit chatting and getting to know. Like I got to chat with Chris from Cabin Boy Meets. Like we just got to hang out and chat about life, and catch
Mhm.
because I haven't seen him since last year's run. Like
Yeah.
so it was like that kind of atmosphere of just being able to relax and meet and talk and meet some other makers. It was like really wonderful.
Yeah. Yay.
What's the plans for the store? Like, I know you didn't have a business plan when you got into the business. Is there a business plan now? Are you thinking?
Oh, no. I'm always like brainstorming, and I mean, right now this shop is great. It's running perfectly. I have a great team, and I don't feel like there's any reason to change anything at the moment. But I am trying to, start to do lives on Instagram. I'm like leaning into that idea. But I do have some like more personal plans over the next couple years to grow like the design side of I guess it's not personal, it's also another business, right? The whole designing thing. So I have some book ideas. I have I'm going to be teaching a little bit more. I'm teaching at the Hill Country Weavers this year. So I've never really thought about teaching as a designer. And so this is a new step for me.
I feel like it's almost should be a requirement for store owners to be teachers because this is what you do anyway. You're helping people to figure.
Right. I mean, I've taught like knitting and basic stuff, but I haven't taught like techniques that are part of my design work.
Right. Well, you have been a crafter all your life. Do you feel like you still learning?
Oh yeah. I just learned something the other, this latest sweater I just made. I figured out how to do intarsia in the round and in such a simple way that I was like, how did I not know how to do that? Like it, like I've done intarsia in the round many different ways, and it's always complicated and annoying. And I did it this time, and it's like it was so easy. I was shocked.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how to do it.
Share your wisdom.
So when you're you can only really do it in small circumferences. It's hard to do it. Well, you can do it in a larger circumference, but it's not, the finished product isn't as great. But if you're doing like on a sleeve, you can, you get to I usually do like a little sort of forearm detail when I'm doing my designs. And when you get to the contrast color, you do your usual stranded knitting, you're going across and you're carrying the main color. And then you drop the contrast at the end of the motif, and then you go around the sleeve. And then when you get to the motif again, you slip to where you dropped off.
Oh.
And then you turn and you purl back.
That's so clever.
And then the other piece I learned, because I didn't like the way that it looked. It was like a little bit bigger gauge because my knit gauge is a little different than my purl gauge. So I went down a needle size just for the motif.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's actually very clever. It's like basically makes it like knitting flat.
Yes. Just for that part. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm coming to New York for Vogue Knitting Live, and one of the plans is to come and see your store the day.
Oh, good. Good.
So I hope to see you there again.
Well, make sure you let me know because I'm not always there.
Yeah, we're gonna make
I do live across the street, so I can go right over.
That sounds like a plan. I'm gonna be in touch about that, and maybe you can give me a tour of the store.
Yeah,
there.
Definitely. I can show you my midwifery office too. Could do a whole little back and forth.
That would be so perfect. That sounds like fun time for me. Well, thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you for being my guest today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.